I know that I started a whole war on my 12-year anniversary, and I let everybody see it. It was unplanned, unedited, unfiltered, unexpected. And y'all want to know something else? I am unapologetic. Not only would I do it again, but I came back to finish what I started. It took me years to find my voice in this way and to speak my truth in love, because it was all love and respect at the end of the day. I don't know that I disrespected him or myself. He actually started it. He put a camera in my face and asked me a question in public that I had already answered in private. And I did forewarn him. What kind of answer do you want? Do you want me to tell a lie, or do you want me to tell the truth? And he opened the door and the floor for me to tell the truth. And it actually turned out to be a really good and healthy conversation that went unfinished. A lot of you have been following me for almost 11 years. I opened up my world to you guys, and I've allowed you to walk with me for almost as long as I have been an author, a grad student, a doctor of psychology, a wife, a caregiver, and a mother. For almost 11 years, I've given you guys my hand to hold, and I let you walk with me through some of the most vulnerable seasons of my life. And then a few years ago, it was your hands that I needed to hold as I walked through death and losing a baby that just 5 years prior, I took y'all in the delivery room with me when I gave birth to him. And I have always been one to share the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm a writer, and a writer's mind is not private, it's public. My creative mind is not just mine, it's mine to share, and it's a very vulnerable space to be in. And that's just who I am, and it's just a part of the calling that God has placed on my life. And I have always been a purveyor and a champion of truth. I'm not going to ever get on this platform and tell you a lie. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to influence. I'm not here to sell a false reality to acquire affluence. There's a big difference. I'm here to be a game changer. I'm here to encourage you and to give you hope and to provide you with a sense of a safe space and to let you know that you're not alone. I'm here to make you laugh. I don't want to make you cry, but if my truth or my reality for that day exudes that, then I guess we all gonna grab some tissues and we gonna cry it out. Every single tool in my toolbox that God has given me, I use it. Everything that I have fought through, laughed through, cried through, and suffered through, but made it through and lived to tell the story, I'm a storyteller, and I will tell it. I think that I go through, I grow through, and then I walk you through. The one area of my life that I have always been careful of putting on public display to be put under a microscope and become scrutinized is my marriage. I look at marriage as being sacred and holy and just none of y'all business. And based on the thousands of responses that I've gotten from married women all over the world, I think it's safe to say that a lot of wives feel the same way. We protect our union, and sometimes we do the most to protect it, and we use platforms like this to make it look like a fairy tale. We might be tired, worn thin, and stretched to capacity, but we don't say it. We don't even say it to ourselves. We will package it in this pretty little bow and we'll make it look beautiful. And we have allowed the world to romanticize marriage and strip the people in it of humanity. And not only that, but because marriage is rooted in holiness, we let the church take the Bible and train wives into submission, and they try to use Jesus to do it. Throughout my marriage, I have heard so many scriptures quoted on pulpits to try to shut me up and sit me down. I grew up hearing them as a little girl, and I remember when I got married, I desperately wanted to be this wife who pleased God and did right by my husband. And I would keep going back to all the Bible verses that talked about what wives should do and what they should not do, and I would cling to them, and I would beg God to give me the strength to be that kind of wife. In Ephesians chapter 5, it says that a wife must respect her husband. In 1 Peter chapter 3, it says to your husband, to respect him without a word by the purity and reverence of your life, and to have a gentle and a quiet spirit, and to be like Sarah, who obeyed Abraham and called him her master. In the book of Titus, it tells women to be reverent, not to slander, to be kind, and to be subject to their husband. In Philippians 4:8 and Ephesians chapter 4, it says, don't speak negatively. And then in 1 Corinthians, it says something about the wife not having authority over her own body, but that she should yield it to her husband. And then in 1 Corinthians 13, you know the passage, the love passage. And then, of course, of all the verses, Proverbs 31, the wife of noble character. And then, not only that, but I would read scriptures that told me my husband was supposed to be the head and the decision maker and the hard worker, and that I was never supposed to have any kind of negative thoughts about him, and that I was only supposed to think about whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is lovely. And so I think as wives, we don't share our spouse's harmful or sometimes hurtful behavior because we've been trained not to. And so the way that I spoke up last week out of character like that, some people felt like that was complete slander. That poor man, how dare you? Because we always victimize the man and we will villainize the woman. They said things like, the Bible says not to slander your spouse or try to ruin his reputation or to speak badly of him in any way. And some people even threw scripture at me. They said, well, in the book of Titus, it tells wives to be reverent in the way that they live and don't slander, but you want to be kind and subject to your husband so that no one will malign the word of God. But you want to know what? I know my Bible too. And speaking truth in order to improve your relationship or to get guidance, it's not speaking badly, it's speaking truth. And truth, according to John chapter 8, verse 32, is what sets the people free. Do not romanticize me. I am human. I have emotions, and I will sometimes respond accordingly. I am not called to be more patient, loving, forgiving, or grace-filled than God is. It is my job to do the natural, and I leave the super up to God. And so if I'm tired, I'm tired. If I'm worn out and I'm stretched thin and I'm depleted and I'm empty, don't put a muzzle on me in Jesus' name. Don't tell me to fix my crown and get back up. No, ma'am. How about you sit in it with me? Let's talk about it. Hear me. Understand me. Let's go through it and let's grow through it so that we can figure out how to become better. Over the last 14 years of being with my husband, I've learned a lot about him. I've learned a lot about myself. I'm very protective of him. I make excuses for him all the time. I've been that way since he asked me to be his girlfriend about 14, 15 years ago. I think I am by nature a nurturer and a protector. And so when he came into my life, I shielded him. And then I took on the responsibility of caring for my mother-in-law, and I shielded her. And then we started having children, and I shielded them one by one. Everybody was protected and everybody was covered but me. And I didn't think anything was wrong with that. I think it felt normal to care for everyone else and to leave myself at a deficit because I came from such trauma and abuse and neglect and abandonment where I wasn't loved well or I wasn't protected and seen or made worthy of things. And so it felt normal to care and to love everybody but me. And so when you look at the background of Tariq and I before we made it to one another, I came from struggle. I was in constant survival mode. I had to grow up early. I had to figure it out for myself. I had to be independent. And I think that experiencing trauma at an early age, while trauma can stunt brain growth, it can also help the brain develop faster. And so I was very mature for my age. I was always stronger, smarter, wiser, faster. I didn't have time to be dependent or to be babied. I got to make it. And so I was always light years ahead of my peers and my boyfriends. I was like a horse in a pony race. And when you look at Tariq, Tariq came from a 2-parent household where he was loved and supported, and his parents had really good jobs, and he was an only child, and he lived a good life. He could depend on his parents and his community, and he moved at a much slower pace. There was no reason for him to rush. He was spoiled. His parents did everything for him, and he didn't have to work for anything. And so we meet up in college, right? And he's looking at me and I'm looking at him. And I think we both look safe to each other. He looked like a nice guy that would not abandon me or hurt me. And I think I look like this strong woman that could be an extension of the life he lived at home. Somebody to cater to him and to love on him and to do everything and to meet his needs. And so these two people meet, right? And so in order to make this work, somebody has to either speed up or slow down. And so at this time, I'm deep in my faith, and the Bible talked about the submissive wife, and the man is the head and the leader. And so I took that as, okay, I need to slow down. I need to slow down. I need to make myself smaller so that I could fit into this box called marriage. Don't be mouthy. Don't be so independent. Slow your roll. Pump your brakes. And so we dated, and that's what happened. I carried the heavier load because I was used to it, and he carried the lighter load. And if that light load got too heavy, I would take it from him and just hold everything. Here, I got it. I wanted to please him, and I wanted to prove to him that I could be a good wife. And I wanted everybody to be happy and content at my expense, because I felt like if everybody was happy, that meant they loved me and that they wouldn't leave me. And I was sick of being left alone. I wanted somebody to stay. I wanted him to stay. And I was willing to do anything to show him that I was worth it to stay. And so I put myself in a box, and I lived by his rules. Be at home at a certain time. Matter of fact, be home all the time with the kids. I want to go out and I want to play football. You cook. I want to play my video game. You go grocery shopping. You plan the birthdays. You plan the vacations. You do the back to school shopping. You take care of my mama. You clean up. When I want to make love, you say yes. Don't you tell me no, because I'm going to throw a grown man temper tantrum and I'm going to guilt trip you until you give in. You don't have time for friends, not any real ones. Maybe acquaintances, but I am your husband. I am the most important person. I am your best friend. Nobody gets more attention than me. You are my wife, your body, your time, your everything. I get it all. Somewhere along the line, that's what he learned about marriage. And somewhere along the line, I made it okay, because maybe this is what a wife is supposed to do. Maybe this is what it looked like for somebody to care for me. Maybe this is love. And so I ran myself rugged in the name of love for 14 years, every day, pouring from an empty cup, filling my children's buckets and my husband's buckets and my mother-in-law's buckets. And then I would pop on social media and I would try to fill y'all's buckets with hope and encouragement. Whole time I'm empty and I'm tired. But it may not have looked like it yet, because trauma stamina, it can keep going and going and going, and it can make things look easy and effortless. My childhood made me a Goliath. I was an unstoppable giant, a giant, and no stone you could throw at me could bring me down until August 8th, 2020. That was a stone. That was a stone that brought Goliath down and stripped me of all the mechanisms that made me mighty before the world and brought me down to my lowest common denominator. I'm out multitasking and making everything easier for everybody at my own expense. My husband went with his friends and little Tariq, and they went to play basketball. And I took the heavier load, the 4 and the 6-year-old, on scooters. And then I took the brand new dog, which I knew nothing about. And whoops, I take my eyes off the babies for a few seconds, and bam, in the blink of an eye, pandemonium. Down goes Frazier. And I said, oh my God, I failed. And I didn't just fail, I fucked up. Yes, it was an accident, but I knew better. Had I been thinking clearer, I would not have brung a brand new dog with me to a park that needed just as much tending to as children. Not while the babies are on scooters. I would have put my phone away, and I probably would have told my husband, no, you cannot go play basketball. I need help. How about we all walk and talk together? So many shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and nobody to blame but myself and that poor baby who was left to suffer because of it. Anyhow, I remember the night my baby sat in the hospital, and his teeny tiny little body, it kept seizing. It looked like his brain was short-circuiting. His heart rate on the monitor kept going up and up and up and up. And then after a while, the machine just started blinking red X's because it couldn't count any higher. And I thought his heart was going to explode. And I remember being so scared for him. And Tariq and I sat in the hospital and watched this for 36 hours until finally the doctors were just like, go home, get some rest, come back in the morning. And Tariq and I walked out together, and we went home and we got into bed, and I just remember wanting to die. I could not believe this happened. I thought I was in a twilight zone. Like, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna fix it? Is he gonna be okay? Is he gonna die? What do I tell our other two babies? Like, this was crazy. And in the middle of my thoughts, Tariq is tapping me on my shoulder, and he's asking me for sex. And my mind kind of drew a blank at his request. I'm like, is he serious? Now? Like right now? And right after that, my mother-in-law, who had no idea of what had happened, she's hollering for me to help her in the bathroom. And so I have my husband over here needing something. I have my mother-in-law in the bathroom needing something. And soon, when the kids got home, they would need something. They would need to eat. They would need to be entertained. The house was a mess. The clothes needed washing. And I shut down like a computer. And I said, I can't do this anymore. Emotionally, I checked out. I couldn't cater to that man or to his mother or even the other two kids. Dad was going to have to figure it out on his own. He was going to have to figure out how to cook the food, how to help his mama, how to wash the clothes. I got nothing else to give. I've given it all. And so I went into survival mode to save myself, and I went on a war path to save my baby. When I left and I went to New Orleans, I was alone, I was afraid, and I was very suicidal. It was the first time in 12 years that I had slept alone without my husband, and so I was afraid of the boogeyman and Freddy Krueger. Y'all, I'm a wuss on the low. I am a wuss. I am scared of the dark. And then to be in New Orleans, of all places, with all that witch stuff, I was scared. And then on top of that, I had to look at my Judah, my beautiful baby boy who was hanging on for dear life, and watching him struggle. That was torture. Machines going off, dealing with seizures, listening to him cry out in pain, giving him medications around the clock. It was exhausting, and it was hard, and it was the first time in my marriage that I needed my husband to protect me, to cover me, or to tell me, you know what, it's going to be okay. Or to hold on to me and to tell me that he loved me and that this wasn't my fault. Or maybe it was, but it was like an accident, kind of my fault, and that we would get through this together. I finally needed somebody to cover me. But Tariq, my husband, he didn't have the capacity to cover me. And how could he? Protection is a learned behavior. We think it comes natural. It's a learned behavior. And I spent so many years coddling and excusing his behavior and making excuses for him not to show up, and neglecting myself and allowing him to neglect me and making myself small. And now 10 years later, in the middle of a crisis, I need him, and I need him to show up for me, and he doesn't know how to do that. Tariq sat at home being catered to. Family and friends came and they fed him. They took care of the kids, they took care of his mom, and he took a leave from work. He sat at home and he watched updates on social media just like y'all. And when it got too hard for him to look at Judah that way, he would stop watching. Sometimes he would call me because he was at home bored and he didn't have nothing to do. And he would get offended because I couldn't talk, because I was sleep deprived and I was in fight or flight mode, just trying to get through the next hour with a sick baby. I lived in hiding and on the run and in just trying to save my boy. I lived in constant chaos, constant fear, constant uncertainty. Even when I got rest, I had to sleep with one eye open to make sure he was still breathing, or to suction him, or to check his pulse, or to change him, or to help him stop seizing, or to give him medication. Or sometimes he was just in distress and I was up rocking back and forth with him in my arms, just calling on Jesus. Just, God, please save this baby. Help this baby. This is torture. There was no calm in my life. The only calm I knew was the calm before a storm. I went from Philadelphia to New Orleans to Arizona to Texas to Georgia. I could not catch my breath because I was always on the run. And I gave my husband grace because some people just can't handle trauma like that. And I felt like, okay, it's okay. Maybe he just wasn't built that way, but I was. And so I gave him grace and I kept going. But eventually that grace started to turn into resentment. And it started to turn into, why do you get to not show up, but I have to? Why do you get to benefit from the marriage, but I feel like I have to suffer? Why do you get a woman who tries, but I get a man who does not? Why do you get a wife who knows every hair on your head, but you don't even know my favorite color or my favorite food? I started to be very resentful and just sick of him. My grace ran out. It's just like, Ninja, grow up and get it together. And the moment I completely checked out, where I said, just don't even worry about it no more, was a morning we woke up and Judah had died. I had put him to bed with us the night before, and we woke up to this cold, lifeless baby right next to us. And Tariq freaked out. He's running around screaming, but I had to still be present. I couldn't lose my mind because I had to remember to dial 911. I had to figure out CPR if I needed to. And so I called 911. I did CPR. I tried my best, but nothing. He was still gone. And I didn't want to believe it, but I knew it. And the paramedics came and they took him and they said, we're going to go to such and such hospital up the road and y'all can follow us. And I said, okay. And Tariq and I started walking out of the bedroom, and all of a sudden Tariq froze and he stopped in his tracks, and he's just like, babe, you go. I got to stay here, and I got to get mom up, and I got to get the kids. I got to do stuff here at home. And I said, okay. And I took a deep breath, and I got in my car, and I followed the ambulance to the hospital alone. I stood in the room alone, and I watched them work on my baby until they couldn't anymore. I watched them pronounce him dead, and I just stood there like a single mom with no support. And I think I was just done after that. I think I lost, I'm just being honest, I think I lost respect for my husband. And it was then that I went from get your ish together to I don't want to be married anymore. But it was also then that I realized the seriousness and the depth of marriage. And I had to literally pause and tell myself, girl, you have kids and your entire life tied up. You can't just leave, can you? You told God for better or for worse. You told God forever. Forever ain't up yet, Suge. It's only year 9. You can't just leave. He's not cheating on you. Be grateful to be married in the first place. How dare you want to leave? And it was also then that I realized, baby, if I could have gone back, I don't know if I would have just settled for the nice guy. I think I would have healed first. I think I would have learned to love myself first. I think I would have looked for more things in a man than just being nice. This is when I understood that marriage is not this bucket list item of something to do before you turn however age. Nah, this is serious. This is your life. This is what you signed up for. And now you got to figure out how to stay in it. And so I convinced myself to stay physically, but emotionally I was done. I left and he knew it. I had love for him. I loved him, but I was not in love with him. And so I started living on autopilot, and autopilot mode kept everything fine. Like the dishes still got done, the bills still got paid. And once he realized, okay, she's done with me, then he started trying to step up and try. He put us in therapy. He stepped up with the children and caring for his mom. And he started trying to be intentional with me and trying to learn me and see me. But by that time, I was tired and I didn't have it I couldn't do it. Not at that moment. And it's not that I didn't want to try in the marriage ever again. It's just that it was time for Verlonda to love herself. It was time for me to choose myself for once. I have done my best impression of this damsel in distress, and it was time for V to be V. And the Bible says that all things work together for the good of them who love God and who are called according to his purpose. But see, we like to pick the things. We like to pick and choose what God uses to mold us and to shape us. And so for me, it took losing my son and losing myself in marriage for me to realize I am not happy. I don't even know myself. I know myself as a mother and I know myself as a wife, but I don't know V as a person, as a woman. When Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, the night before he was set to be taken and beaten and then ultimately killed, he was scared. He was afraid. He was not happy. And he begged God, find another way. Don't take my life. But he was real about where he was and how he was feeling. And Jesus, the entire time in the garden, he never once rebuked his emotions. And I wasn't going to either. Yes, I am a married woman, but I was not a happily married woman, and something had to change. What got us here cannot take us there. And you know what? There is no judgment or strikes against you for being human, and it is okay to do whatever you feel you need to do to survive. It's silly to think that you can be a lifeboat for somebody else while you are drowning. And I spent years thinking that if I fixed me, it would fix him. Maybe I could just be nicer. Maybe if I were thinner, softer. Let me do more of this. Let me do more of that. Let me cater more to his feelings. Let me have more sex. Let me give him more freedom. And you know what I learned by doing that? You can be good to people, and you can be generous, and you can be kind to people, and Judas will still betray you. How people treat you is not a reflection of you or your character. It's a reflection of theirs. There is no amount of generosity that will make that will make bad character good character. It was not up for me to fix Tariq. It was up for me to fix V. And that's what I started doing. I got into therapy for my own self. I started learning who I was and who I wasn't. I started doing the things that made me happy and that brought me joy. And you know what? God also put a friend in my life who went on to be my best friend. Y'all know her. I call her my non-biological twin sister, my twin. God knew that I needed her. I never knew what love and intimacy felt like outside of romance and marriage. But you know what? There is a platonic, deep love that exists in friendship. And I am so glad that I got to experience that. Like, since she has come into my life, she's been the literal hands and feet of Jesus. Somewhere in God's word, it talked about the prayers of a righteous man and how they avail and redeem and cover. And I am so grateful for my sister, the woman, the friend who, in her righteousness, she spoke words of covering over my existence that brought life back into my body and joy back into my day. And she helped to pick me up when I came to the end of myself. Friendship. It taught me self-care, camaraderie, and it made my load lighter. And I started to do more of what V wanted to do, which is travel. And I still do travel with my husband, but for the first time, I also get to do what I love with my friend, and I find joy outside of marriage. And girls' trips are so much fun. And you know what? I am so busy. I never thought that I had the time and the space and the heart for anything else. I have a brand to run. I got contracts to fulfill, book deals to finish, movies to produce. I'm a college professor. I have lives to change. I love my students. I have a deceased baby to grieve, and I've got living children to raise, and they are running me rugged with sports, and they're growing like weeds. Baby, they eat up all my food, they spend up all my money, and they need my time and my attention. I have a marriage that needs rebuilding and rebranding, and a household to run, a mother-in-law to care for. I have so much on my to-do list, but I don't add friendship on my to-do list. I add friendship on my self-care list. My friend is who I stop my to-do list for and breathe. Friendship has taught me how to pace myself, how to steady myself, and how to balance. In my desire to be Spider-Man to everybody else, friendship has taught me the importance of tending to the Peter Parker in me. Sometimes there is no good answer. There's no answer that is good enough to justify or to explain what we've been through. Life is gone life, and the goal is not to find an answer. The goal is learning how to exist in a space without an answer. Making time for yourself, ladies, wives especially. Making the time out for yourself is not going to fix things, but it will fill up your tank so that you have the energy to deal with what's difficult. It'll show you how to exist in spaces without an answer. When life starts lifing, sometimes the strategy is to stand, to not die, to live. Paul said, having done all to stand, I will live and not die. It gives you the courage to look at the storm and say, you know what? One of us is going to quit first, and it won't be me. Life is hard. Marriage is hard. It costs what it costs. It takes what it takes. And if you want it, you got to pay the price. It does not go on sale. And in the going through, it is okay to hold ourselves and to hold our spouses accountable and to challenge each other to grow and to change. Let me tell y'all something. To love somebody long term, I was just talking to my sister about this earlier. To love somebody long term is to attend 1,000 funerals of the people they used to be, the people that they're too exhausted to be any longer, the people they grew out of, and the people they never grew into. Sometimes we want the people that we love to get their spark back when it burns out, or to hurry up and find yourself when they get lost. But you know what? It's not our job to hold anybody accountable to the people they used to be. It's our job to travel with them between each version and to honor whatever emerges along the way. And so, you know what? I pray for every marriage. May you find joy in the journey. May you find a good friend and good support to walk with you and to hold you up. There will always be a wave to ride in life, but today's warfare produces tomorrow's weapons, and so may the warfare in your today produce a weapon of mass destruction tomorrow. You don't know where you've been until you've been in a scary place. You don't know how powerful your God is, how strong your faith is, or what he can do, or what you're capable of until you hit that scary place. Before then, it's just religion and doctrine. And so my prayer for every marriage that has ever hit a scary place, may the good Lord bless you and keep you and give you rest and restoration. There will be moments in marriage where the odds are going to be stacked against you. But you know what? If God be for you, the odds can be stacked against you. The data can be stacked against you. But God does not count like man. You don't have to have numbers on your side to come out the victor. God is the equalizer. And so I hope that my life, my testimony, my pain, and my joy, take whatever you need from this story to bless your life and to be encouraged and to be inspired. God bless you.